Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
Welcome to the Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Nate Warren. Nate, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Caught in this elevator. I'm stuck in an
Right?
elevator.
Are we up or down?
Are we going up? Or are we going down? Who knows? It's a crazy elevator. I actually wrote something about a haunted elevator where they didn't know where they were getting off. But
Okay.
you know, it sounds like a porno, actually. Like
The haunted elevator,
it
for sure.
Yeah,
I get you.
So a little bit about me. I grew up everywhere, and now I live everywhere. So I'm coming, I'm going. No, just perfect for this elevator.
Well, where is nowhere then, if you're everywhere?
So
How do we?
I was technically born in Texas.
Okay.
Well, nobody's heard of it. But anyway,
Are you not there now? You're
no.
not in
I
Texas?
live in LA. Like I live in
Okay.
LA, but I work in Canada. I work in different places, like writing things from afar, and things get made from afar. And every once in a while, I'll come to set, and I'll embarrass myself there, and then they won't let me back to set, and so then I go back to writing. And so that's basically how I got my career. Is that they don't come back to set, stay at home, here, write something.
That's a hell of a commute. You live in LA and you work in Canada. They're
Yeah, I
wondering
know,
where to
right?
get
That's the only way I make it work is for me to just be pounding at the keyboard. But yeah, but it's fun. It's good. I've been doing this like professionally since 2019, basically. It's like kind of when I got my start. I worked with Anwar Jabawi, who is this really great comedian. He does skits and stuff, and so like I wrote for him for a number of years, and then I wrote for other people in his network, like other influencers. They were like comedians themselves. So I did that for a while, and then I don't know, I've popped into features and things and jumping around and trying to get my movies made and trying to get your TV shows made all the time. So it's like it's a whirlwind, and but that's the life. That's the life. It's great.
It is the life. So let's make it a little more complicated, shall we?
Great, sure, let's go for it.
All right. So the main idea is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define, right? So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes as opposed to the comedian who is a funny person telling any jokes. So a lot of people would say that you evolved from the comic into the comedian, but let's see that with the first question. So the first question is the role of persona in comedy. So how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
I would have said that it's one to one, like for really good comics. But then when I came onto the podcast, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be myself. I'm gonna be myself, and then I come in and I'm like a madman. so I'm like, well, maybe there is something to that. Maybe you just put on a mask or a face, and sometimes maybe putting on a face or a mask allows you to be a little bit more truthful than you otherwise would be. So like, there's some honesty to that. So I think people have different methods, different tools in their arsenal to kind of get their message across. The comedian versus comic, yeah, it's a conundrum, really, because like some people want to be, some people get lost in the sauce. I mean, I don't have a good example, but let's say if somebody was Pee Wee Herman and they didn't want to be Pee Wee Herman, and they were, then you're stuck being Pee Wee Herman your whole life. That was a bad example because I think he was actually I haven't seen the documentary, but it's just fresh in my mind.
Well, so Pee Wee Herman definitely, I think he's a great example because he started a kind of a genre, right?
Yeah.
He used the comic element, especially the visual, but he is himself, he was a caricature of himself,
Right.
of a true deep comedian. So that's an interesting hybrid. So personally, one of the reasons I started the podcast is because once I first found out that there is a difference between a comic and a comedian, I went down the rabbit hole. I'm like, what? Wait a minute, what's happening here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does authenticity matter, or is the illusion part of the magic?
Oh, that's interesting. Where's authenticity? I think that the best kind of masks are authentic. So like even like you said, like Pee Wee Herman, like he's putting on a mask, but it's an over exaggerated version of something that he knows or from his life. I don't think you can like try to I think this is actually a really great example. If you just looking at other people, you can imitate, and you can like, I mean, so there are some people who are really good imitators, right?
Hmm.
But they don't but other than like being imitating, they're not funny. Yeah, I mean, they're really good at imitating, but they're not able to bring their own like life story into the role or that sort of thing, and make something just, oh, that's Michael Caine, but it's actually also Michael Caine being funny, or Michael Caine bringing some sort of truth into the world, that nobody's noticed before.
So do you see that? Do you see that often where people are actually trying to emulate an actor or comedian, but or more an actor because they're not necessarily funny, and then they try and make it funny?
I don't know. Now I'm reaching for examples and I can't.
No, it's great. I've never even thought of that. I mean, maybe this
Well,
is
I
like
mean, I
a
know that.
thing that happens
So
that people
here's
do
what's happening.
naturally.
I think here's what I think. I think that like there are, when I say comedians and when I don't really know them that well, it's like more like people in my immediate circle who maybe are really good at impressions, but they're not great
Hmm.
at like telling jokes. And there are
Right.
people who are telling jokes who are not good at impressions. But like I would say that telling a joke is a different skill than being able to do impressions. They're both skills, and doing impressions is can be really funny and really hilarious, but without the like ability to tell jokes on top of that, you really just have a guy making noises.
So
Um,
would you say they're actually doing bad impressions and that's why they're funny?
Maybe sometimes people doing bad impressions. When you it's, a good impression is also like a caricature, right? So you like take that like the thing that makes something unique and pulling it out, and that comes from your own like vision and your own like you're only the artist can like know what to accentuate and what to like detract and what to emphasize. And so like the really good you know uh person who does impressions will be able to do that the same way a good caricaturist could. And so I think that that's like this the parallel there.
Well, this leads to the next question, which is punching up versus punching down.
Yeah.
So where does a comic versus a comedian stand on this? And I'm going to add, is a comic doing an impression, is that an example of punching up?
Interesting. I guess it depends on what you're doing an impression of, right? Like it's the whole punching up, punching down. The weird thing about like who's a target and who isn't a target, um, I wouldn't like. There's something about princes doing comedy that just feels wrong, right? Like a king, you do a king or a queen, you like, all right, so now, all right, you go to a ball, or I'm saying we're going way back to
Yeah.
jesters, okay? We're going back to jesters. So you go into a medieval castle and you have the king, and the king's like, hey, the prince is going to do some comedy. What's the prince going to have to talk about? Like that, how's he going to make people laugh? Like, like there's this disconnect. So you can't really do comedy if you're on top. I mean, you can, but there's only one. You're not going to do anything that is. You're not going to get a lot of people on your side. I mean, I don't know, unless people want to live through the prince.
Well,
This is
well, how does that relate to the jester? Because isn't that his job?
the jester, right? The jester's job, but the jester is always on the. He's always like the bottom. He's the fool. He's the of the court,
The
right?
the
He's able
comic.
to. He's able to exactly the comic. So he's able to tell the truth how it is, right? But if you had the prince or somebody try to take the jester's job, nobody's going to trust the prince because he has a lot of, you know, he's got too much sway. Everybody's going to laugh because they have to laugh.
Hmm.
There's just no comedy in that. So taking that to today, I don't know that it necessarily applies because we don't have princes and kings and that sort of thing. We do have like classes, and sometimes classes like it's not really fun when one class is beating up on another class, especially if one class has all the resources. But that's kind of like I don't even write about that stuff. I write a
No,
little bit
that's a very interesting premise about maybe the prince is jealous
of the
you
jester.
know
Yeah,
of the jester because the prince just happens to be he appreciates comedy, but there is no comedian at that
yeah,
time. There are only comics, and
right.
he could be the first comedian in history. So I could see that
Yeah,
turning into something.
could be that could be
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Flesh that out a little bit. Well,
exactly.
the second part of that is the audience's agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
Wow. I think that the audience, in a lot of ways, I can only relate to writing and what sometimes to me, the audience is an afterthought. I'm pretty bad about like caring what the audience thinks. I do care, but I also like to I like to have the freedom to say whatever I want and then like get the audience to be like, and I say that as like whatever I want, not whatever you want. I don't know what you want. You might want something to say something terrible, and I wouldn't want that. But like I know that I'm not going to say anything terrible, so I say everything that I want to say, and none of it turns out to be terrible and never has gotten me in trouble. So like it's kind of like this weird thing where it's like, I can say whatever I want, and I do, and then I get rewarded for it. Ah,
So you're in alignment. You're not
I
actually asking
guess.
for permission. Okay.
Yeah, I
You
don't
just
think like
naturally align it.
the weird thing is that I guess yeah, I guess I'm in alignment because I don't feel like I'm definitely not adversarial with my. I've had jobs right where they wanted us to be as um they wanted us to make the audience angry. Like that was the job. They're like, look, we're trying to get engagement. We're trying to get people to like clicks. We want to make people angry. So if you can like insult this like fat girl in the first 5 seconds and really make it look like she's really sad and everything, it was terrible. Like and like it's and just like stuff about like there's those vertical dramas. Vertical dramas. Are you aware of those?
Well,
They're
now you're
basically,
getting me. I can imagine, I think.
it's so basically it's like a drama that takes place on a little like cell phone, right?
Okay.
So it's a vertical drama. So and these vertical dramas, they're the only people who are hiring out here in Hollywood because they're like they hire people to do these kind of like soap operas, and these soap operas all take place in like 5-10 minutes, and they want to get people angry right away. So sometimes they'll have somebody like say like some offensive thing right off the back, or like, or hey, like you're sleeping with my wife's sister, and that's our kid, and what, like all this. So
So you
all
mean like TikTok? TikTok is the format. That's why it's vertical?
exactly right, yeah,
Okay.
format, yeah. So yeah, so but yeah, no, it's anyway. That's the state of the industry right now.
Well, that does lead to the next question, which is the
Sure.
cultural translation of comedy. So, how does a joke that work in one country or region or city bomb in another?
Oh wow, I love that. I love that because well, one, because I work internationally, and so like I also grew up internationally. So when I would say jokes in my German school from England, or from English and English to German, it would always like cause these. I would think it's funny, they wouldn't think it's funny, or vice versa. In Germany, really like honed my like comedy to being very very I don't know, how do you describe German comedy? It's very
Politically correct?
it's very politically correct. It's
Okay.
very matter of fact, I guess is a way of putting it, and
Okay.
a little bit sarcastic. But like I
Hmm.
think the thing is that when I had to go from that, I went there to Cuba and then to Japan, like growing up. So this is my childhood, right? And so
You
like
grew up
going,
in Cuba?
yeah, and
Huh.
uh,
Uh,
Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Yeah.
I see. This is a joke, right?
No, it's not a joke. It's not a
Oh,
joke.
you're on the military base?
Yeah, I lived on the military base
Ah,
for 2 years. Yeah,
all right.
yeah. So, yeah, no, that's yeah, it was great times. Yeah, they have a great dude. Like, there's so
Best surfing around, right?
best surfing around. Well, not surfing. Well, you can do wakeboarding. You can do that sort of
Okay.
stuff. You can do jet skiing. Surfing, not there's not that many big waves, but
All
they,
right.
but yeah, no, you can do a lot of cool stuff in Cuba. Or at least you could in 1999 and 2000. And then 2001 happened, and then I don't know, something happened in New York. And then
Yeah.
now and now it's used for other things. It's
That
used,
that's the reason to leave Cuba is because of 9/11, right?
yeah, it's a good reason to leave anywhere. Just everybody move. Just no, it doesn't matter where. Just everybody move.
So would you say that comics are more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
I would say so. That makes sense. Comedians feel like they're much more like a uh, um, well, given your example, I think, yeah, I think so. I think that makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to comics, um, it's weird because when I think of comics, the first thing that comes to mind is comic strips. And I don't
Hmm.
know if you actually think of that too, but like comics, me is almost like something that you visual, maybe it's visual that you do, and maybe a comedian is something more like you're thinking, how you think or how you perceive the world, or that sort of thing. But I don't know.
For sure. That's definitely how I see it, as a more superficial kind of
Right.
structural way, right? So
Got
so that leads into the next question, because if we're talking about not the visual, but how would you perform as a human, I would say it would be crowd work versus crafted work.
mm,
So for example, I would argue that a comic would riff more, do more crowd work, while a comedian performs, right? Does
yeah.
more built material. So where is the sweet spot?
Absolutely. And the sweet spot, oh man, I think a lot of comedians, like you said, start off doing the comic stuff because that's how we like get our first. I remember I was like an MC in high school, and it was just like, oh, I was doing such, getting everybody on your side. You loved like living in the spotlight and that sort of thing. And then you go from years of rejection and years of toil and years of trying to get back at just a taste of that, like that high that you got from being the cool guy in high school and
Mhm.
or something, or the drama kid in high school, and working your way back to that makes you into a comedian or makes you into an artist or makes you into a writer or something. It's that, like, yeah, you're trying to get back that feeling that you got when you were a kid, but like the feeling now is much more rewarding because you have a lot to show for it, and there's like a lot of like experience. Now you can like look at your work and be like, oh, I'm really funny, or like I tried really hard and I was funny, and it wasn't just like a flash in the pan, and I wasn't just like you know um, riffing on that one kid or something.
Exactly. That's reproducible. The comedian
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
has figured out why he's funny and can reproduce it, which is the hard
Exactly.
part,
That's
right?
that's the real key there.
So
Yeah.
what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work or a comedian gets heckled?
Well, I think that's interesting because you can get lost in the sauce, and you can get pulled into where you don't want to be, which is like with the audience. I think that's the thing. It's like once you're like, there's no separating you from the audience, and there's always like a crowd work works until it doesn't, and there's like this like thing where it becomes personal or something becomes like something clicks in either uh the the comedian's mind or the comic's mind, and it becomes something like, no, I'm going to destroy you, or I'm going to ruin you, or I'm going to embarrass myself and do, like, I'm just thinking like Michael Richards or something, like going crazy over or something, because you just hit the limit. Um, so there's always that danger of letting your emotions take control. So I would say that the safe thing to do is to develop your craft, be be really good at crowd work when you need it, but don't rely on it. Try to like use it as something as like a safety net for when bad things happen. Because it's good to be funny at all times, but I can't be funny all the time. It's hard. It's really
It,
hard.
it is hard. And I actually wouldn't recommend relying on the crowd at that point, because if you're not
No,
funny with your crafted material, and then you're like, well, what is the crowd going to help me with? They ain't going to help you at that point.
that's a good point. That's
You
a
are
good point.
screwed.
That's a really good point. At that point, you should probably just like end, go to the
Yep,
next
I would
one. Yeah,
explode. That's what I would
yeah,
do. I would literally like take off my clothes and walk off stage. That's what I would
yeah.
do at
No,
that
that's a
point.
fun one. Yeah.
All right, so advertising and self-promotion. So who advertises themselves more, a comedian or a comic? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now. And this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Oh my gosh, this is a good. Well, I mean, I'm really bad at self-advertising. I do the thing where I'll sneak into people's DMs. That's about as much as as advertising as I like to do. Which doesn't feel like advertising, but no. That's kind of the, which is funny because like I get hired to write like commercials, and you think that like, okay, well, I'm okay putting a brand out there. Why can't I do the same thing for my brand? And I don't know if it necessarily. I think a professional should advertise their services like always, and always be like trying to get the better job and the next job. That's the at least that's the system that we have right now. Like, it makes sense. Like, just if you want something, you have to ask for it, and putting yourself out there in as many platforms as you can is the way of doing that.
So do you see self-promotion as selling out, or is it necessary?
No, I don't think it is selling out. I think self-promotion is kind of like one of those things where it's like, I wish that we didn't have to. Like, I think that it felt like this is I don't know, because I'm not that old, but like it feels like 40 or 50 years ago, we'll say, I don't know, that the studios or whoever was in charge, maybe it's hard to get through this layer, and I'm just like, so I'm gonna take back everything I said. I think 40 or 50 years ago was just hard in a different way. But now it's like hard because there's so much stuff out there, which is great. I actually love that. I love that there's so much stuff out there that it's hard to like get to the top.
So do you think there is a top, or maybe it's been it's decentralized?
Yeah, no, it's been democratized. It's been like, there's no real top. There's no real, it's just finding your niche. It's like, really, that's really, find your tribe, and then your tribe is your lifeline at that time. I haven't, that's the kind of crazy thing. It's like, and if you're not good at self-advertising or putting yourself out there, you can do what I did, which is not great, which is that like you fall through the cracks. And if you fall through the cracks,
you're recommending this?
No, I'm not. I'm saying don't do this. Don't fall through the cracks. But like, if you fall through the cracks, at least do it in the way that I have, which is like keep getting work somehow. I don't know how. Well, that's the main thing. It's just I still put myself out there. I just don't put myself out there for like the big stuff. You really want to put yourself out there for all the big projects, or who you really want to work with and that sort of thing, and be like, hey, I have this, like, I have a script. Everybody's got a script, but I have a really badass script about Hawaii in the 1880s. And it's a badass script. And I'm like, but I know I should email The Rock or Jason Momoa or somebody with like, who from Hawaii, and just be like, hey man, this is a great like fucking idea. Let's get this made. I don't do that. Instead, I just sit on it. And it's like, it's fun to have.
Well, I know what I would do is I would actually contact the opposite kind of person.
Oh, really? The opposite of Hawaii?
Yeah, absolutely. The opposite. Exactly. Eskimos. You got to contact Eskimos about Hawaiian production. And then that's how I would see it. And eventually you would find an Eskimo. They're like, you know what? I was thinking the same thing. It's but why? There might be an alignment there.
There is an alignment there. That is for sure. So yeah, no, but so I'm not great at the self-promoting thing, but I see it as very valuable, especially in today's market.
Yeah. Well, how about censorship and offense? Do you think a comic avoids offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point?
Interesting. I think you can do it. I think that if we're using those definitions of comic and comedian, I think for sure that a comic in that sense is just trying to evoke a reaction, and sometimes getting a reaction is the end all be all of a comic. Is like, whether it's a good reaction or a bad reaction, it got a reaction. It's like being a bully. or something. It's just like, yeah, you get a good you get reaction, and then that's what you want. For a comedian, they're going for like a very specific reaction, and not just a comedian. I'll say this again, like to an artist or a writer or something. We're going for a specific reaction, or going for a specific mood or a feeling to evoke inside of the audience. And so it's not just to get any reaction, it's to get a specific reaction. It's to lead them to a specific point they're trying to make, or a specific kind of worldview that we want to just show them a glimpse of. So that's what I think.
Yeah. I guess let me follow up with that. Do you think that anger is an emotion?
Oh, anger is an emotion. Um, yeah, I mean, I like, you make me think about it. Like, I probably would have just said, yeah, sure, anger is an emotion if it was, but yeah, I think anger
I,
is an emotion.
I only throw it out there because you were bringing up how you're trying to evoke anger,
Oh
but
yeah,
a lot of psychologists are actually arguing that anger does not exist in the same section of the brain as all the
interesting.
other emotions.
Interesting. I wish they were there when I was pitching these vertical drama people. I can say,
No, you
nah,
get a reaction, but I would
yeah,
say that it's more of that comic, just get a reaction, and
yeah,
as opposed to a specific
exactly.
emotion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like when you're trying to evoke something, like, and this is something that, like, advertisers know for a long time, is like, you have an emotion, you have a message, you're trying to get people to a call to action and that sort of thing. And advertisers seem to know that really well, but these, like, vertical streamers or whatever they're doing right now seem to just have figured out that, oh, we can use all these, like, tricks to get people to buy stuff, to hang on for just a few seconds
Yeah.
more of attention span, and the quality of the work, it goes down. But
No, for sure. I would concur that anger would be the perfect reaction because you will get a reaction basically.
yeah,
So
exactly.
who survives better in the cancel culture environment, a comic or a comedian?
Well, I think a professional, yeah, comedian would do better. I think the a comic, if they're only courting the reaction, then they're gonna get what they look for. And I don't really. I've made mistakes, right? So, like, one of the mistakes that I made, I've told this story a few times, where I I accidentally wrote. I was writing this script for ABC. It was like for a supermarket sweep. Super is a it was an ad for a game show. So the ad for a game show, and in one of the contestants, he says, "I'm a shooting star," or something like that, something about shooting stars, and then he says, "I'm from Connecticut," and blah blah blah. And the town that I said that he was from, Connecticut, was Newtown, Connecticut. And he said, "I'm shooting stars," and that there was like a school shooting, and
Oh,
that thing. And so, like, I said this stuff, I had it written in the script. It was just like a mind, whatever. Like, it was just a mistake to put, like, shooting stars and Newtown, Connecticut in the same, like, breath. But doing that, yeah, I got in trouble. I didn't get hired again. It's
yeah.
like, it feels terrible, but it's not like, but that, I don't feel like that's like, I don't feel like I got canceled as much as I made a mistake. But, like,
That was a quiet canceling. You
the quiet canceling. I don't know if you would even count. I think it was just basically like, hey, well, he's gonna embarrass us again. Let's not use him. Um, so, and that wasn't the end of my career or anything. So, like, I like, bounced back. And the thing is, it didn't get made. It just went to the next layer, and they were like, and somebody flagged it and was like, "What the fuck? Oh, can we cuss on this?
Oh yeah, it's
Oh
on
shit!
YouTube.
Yeah,
I think
yeah. God damn, fuck,
I
fuck.
think the first 2 minutes would be a problem, but after that, it pretty
Okay,
much is
great,
good to go.
cool.
So timing and delivery, is it a science or an art?
Oh, well, timing on delivery is a science or not.
So do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
This is interesting because I really relate it to writing, because, like, when we talk about comedians and comics, comics is almost like improv, and comedians is kind of like writing, and like getting into the thick of it.
Hmm.
And for me, and there's also two ways of writing. You write with an outline, or you write just off the top of your dome, you know? And
Mhm.
so it's another way of looking at it. You have to be good at both. So I'm trying to think. So I'm trying to relate it. Um,
So is it but of course, with all these questions, they're a little bit of both, right? Is it a
yeah,
science
right.
or an
Sure.
art?
So science. So the main thing with the main thing that I learned in like writing and stuff is like a lot more of art is science than I would have expected. Like there's a lot of science that goes into painting. There's a lot of science that goes into writing music, and there's a lot of science that goes into telling jokes and telling stories and and putting you know building people's imaginations up, you know. And there's an art to that, but there also is a science to it. There's You have to use both. And I think that because I think when we were first starting out with like making movies and stuff, there's a lot of experimentation, and we didn't really know what we were doing, and we were trying to get all sorts of reactions and that sort of thing. And I think that was the time to go really like crazy with reactions. Now we know what we're doing. Now we've had like the experience, and now we have like all of like the 20th century to like kind of guide us for forever now. 20th century is now going to be the century that everybody alludes to forever, because that'll be the last time that we ever made art really without the machines making it for us. You know,
Or competing
that's
directly, right?
or
I
competing
probably,
directly.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean it's like it's a whole line from the Matrix. So it's like, what are you gonna do? I don't know. But I, I went down. I was like, how long can we talk without talking about AI? Not long. Yeah.
Well, how about with this one? So
But yeah.
laughter versus applause versus memory. So are comics chasing
Mm,
laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate the message?
interesting. Yeah, I think that like when you want people talking about your stuff after they leave. Like
Hmm.
after they leave your set, you want them to like, what'd you think about that? What'd you think about that? And not just like, oh, that guy was funny, wasn't he? You know, or like, oh, he made some funny noises. Or the way he went after that kid was, yeah. But I mean, like, there's stuff to be gained in both. But like, I definitely think that like when it comes to the audience, where the audience breaks and the audience laughter, yeah, I much prefer the audience breaks. Just the get them to think, or in my case, a lot of times it's getting YouTube reactions or comments,
Hmm.
or some sort of engagement. And to get the engagement when it's not hey, die, this writing sucks. When it's not that, it can be kind of fun. It can be like, I interact a lot with these like 80-year-old women who watch some of my vertical dramas, you know, and they,
Really?
yeah, man, they like to see. I like wrote this one about this like I wrote this one about a blind date where the girl doesn't know that who the blind date is, and so he comes in, and it turns out that he's a different guy, and he put the real blind date into a car, and that sort of thing. And so it was a misidentity, that sort of thing. And they loved it. They were like, oh yeah, it's like so spooky, and this happened to me, and that sort of thing. And but then where I lost them was I had him bring out a gift for the blind date, and she opens it up, and it's a dog, and the dog is like, it's like a stuffed dog. And then all the 80-year-old ladies were like, nah, I don't want to see anything about a stuffed dog. That's where they draw the line.
So, well, there's those new robot AI dogs that
Yeah, I
they've
know.
come out with as replacement. So
Yeah, I know.
it
Next
wasn't
time.
one of those.
No, it was actually like a stuffed. It was like a taxidermy dog. I don't know how they found it.
Oh,
I wrote it
oh,
into.
that's where it kills it with the older dog.
I wrote it into the script thinking there's no way they're going to find a taxidermy dog, and no way they're going to shoot this. It was just at the very end of the short, and so I was like, oh, this is. But they liked it so much they put it in it, and I feel like our views would have been much better if they hadn't. But it's okay.
I think you generated anger at that moment.
Exactly, but you do that in the beginning, not at the end.
Yes. So
Yeah,
they
that's what they say.
so
And, yeah.
right. So comedy is commentary. So when does a comedian cross into becoming a philosopher or a preacher?
I think when you're a preacher or a philosopher, I think a preacher definitely like tells you how to live and that sort of thing. A philosopher asks a lot of questions. And I do think that like a good comedian gets people to ask questions and to kind of maybe like approach the world in a different way than they thought they would going in. So it's there's my neighbor's dog is barking. I don't
He's
know
angry at that taxidermy joke.
Yeah, have you heard? Can you hear the dog barking?
I can hear the taxidermy joke in the background. Is that what he is? Is that the barking?
I want to make it.
No. It's all right.
It's okay. Yeah, it's just
all right. Last question. So legacy, who gets remembered? Will the comics Tight Five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
Wow. I think the comedian, I think the comics Type 5 is great. I think it's just a building block to get to the point where you can have have something to say. You know, like the Type 5 is great. It's just it's I don't have a good Type 5. If I had a good Type 5, we would have seen it already. But I definitely think that like that going into situations and having a plan and executing the plan and seeing the fulfillment of that plan, that's really rewarding. And that's what I get from being a comedian. If I got the same from being a comic, which I feel like is more of a chasing, it's almost like more of a drug addict kind of feel. Like when you're like chasing that laugh, that next interaction.
Chasing a new joke, perhaps new material.
Joke, Yeah. Whereas I feel like in the other one, I'm really working on what am I trying to say, and then the jokes just come. The jokes, I don't really worry so much about getting that one joke. It's more of like, what am I trying to say? What jokes can I tell to get me there?
100%. That's where I'll go with that one. So where can everyone find you online, Nate?
Okay, yeah, cool. I'm on nessiepictures.com, NESSIE pictures.com. And I'm also on boardsurf.com, BOREDSERF.com. So it's Nessie Pictures is me and my girlfriend Jessie. So Nate and Jessie, Nessie. And Board Surf is my comic strip. And maybe anybody's ever seen it, but it's about a peasant who gets frozen in ice and comes back in the modern day and has to do menial jobs. And
so it's something like Encino Man.
It's exactly like Encino Man. Yeah, it's just Encino Man.
No, so it's really. the comic book version of Encino Man.
Yeah, it's just a comic book version of Encino Man. But like, I mean, with my humor in it. But yeah, it's definitely there's lots of jokes about medieval stuff. I was a medieval art major or minor, medieval art minor. So I have a little bit of that. Like I make jokes about St. Timothy's foreskin and stuff like that.
What do you got that? I think we need to hear it.
Oh no, I don't have. It's not a joke. It's a comic show. So
Oh, I see. I got you.
Yeah,
you get that stand-up material.
He's selling St. Timothy's foreskin at a yard sale.
Oh dear. And there's only one, right? I mean,
right? Yeah, that's the thing. That's the joke about like the relics back in the medieval era. They'd have like this is the chicken that crowed 3 times, and this is so like so he's been holding on to this like foreskin, this lucky foreskin for a long time. Anyway.
Oh dear. Well, Nate, thank you for being my guest, and for everybody else, please. Right. So for everyone else, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
And one more thing, I'm supposed to plug my boss's thing. He's doing he's releasing Read Framed Plus at the end of the summer. It's going to be Read Framed Plus. It's an app. It's going to have my work on it or something. It's going to be I forget that we're actually doing this and people are going to see it. But yeah, Read Framed Plus. I'm excited. Yeah.
Well, if you send me the link, I'll be able to put it in the description.
All right. Terrific. All right.
Awesome. Thanks. And for everyone else, please like and subscribe.